Hey, take a look at Yuta Kotsu getting ahead of the game. What's up, guys? I'm here, and here we are to do a breakdown and review for chapter 243 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as Foolish Survivor Laughing It Up. Ba-dum-bum. And this chapter, whew, it ain't got much, but it got a lot, if you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about. So let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Editing me, I summon thee. 3, a 2, a 1, go. What's up, guys? All Punts here. Fun fact, I have it on me, and I keep it on me at all times. Another fun fact, Mr. Okotsu, my apologies, bucko. I was not familiar with your game. I'll admit, I thought you were up in the streets of Africa, but of course, we got a whole bunch to cover before we actually get to the big main event in this chapter. I'm assuming the event that sent Yuta stocks through the roof. Shout out to everyone who had invested in your Yuta stocks. I'd say be careful, though. I think your investment still is a little bit risky until I get 100% confirmation that Yuta's alive. Fine, next chapter. I would be careful. I would just be a little bit careful. But of course, once again, we gotta stop talking about Yuta. Let's actually hop into the comedy duo of Kenjaku and Takaba. Now, I'm gonna warn you, if my live reaction on Patreon, and for the members, which you can check out for as low as $1 a month, it's about a 30-minute live reaction. If that live reaction is any indication, the voices for both of these characters and the characters that they portray within this chapter are going to be consistently changing. I'll do my best to keep it consistent. But if you hear a little bit of Brian Blessed come out of me, don't blame me. Blame regular Pat, and specifically his cage construct. But let's not waste more time. Let's actually hop right into it. This opening panel is really, really nice, right? And I think it kind of portrays the two characters, despite, once again, presumably all of this chapter, including the very end of it, kind of being Takaba unintentionally or maybe even intentionally reaching into Kenny's brain and kind of just digging his nails in there and kind of shutting everything down. These two characters are kind of portrayed perfectly here. You have Kenjaku, the light. It's so weird calling Kenjaku the light-hearted, silly, goofy fella, but for all intents and purposes, he's a light-hearted, silly, goofy fella who is kind of just in it for the fun of it all. And you can see that by his smile, by his engagement, by how proudly he raises that fist. He's there for the memes and Doritos, and he's gonna have a good old time eating those memes and Doritos. And I greatly appreciate that. It's a nice sort of portrayal of what the character's all about. In the same vein with Takaba. Takaba, he's all about doing comedy seriously, locking in, giving that good show no matter what. He's focused up with his fists, and I like that. Once again, the two different sides of these characters that meet in the middle with their understanding and desire for comedy is really, really nice. I like how Gege decided to show both of these characters. Once again, for a fight that I thought Takaba was going to do something, and I even thought it may have something to do with Kenjaku's goals, but for a fight, a meeting, an interaction, I was not at all expecting. I'll admit, this is a duo that's kind of fire. Low-key may take them cross-verse every once in a while, but we'll see. We open up with number 297, Pinchan. Don't mind me. I'm going to Google what this reference is. I meant to do that before I start recording. This is what happens when we run into a chapter full of references. I'm just getting a whole bunch of GTA 5 stuff. So, I have no idea. I'm all about GTA 5. So I have no idea what Pinchan is. But number 297 probably is a reference to something. Feel free to tell me what it is in the comment section because, I don't know, I got nothing. But we see these two handsome gentlemen stroll out onto the stage to a roaring applause. It's about as roaring as this applause is going to get, I hate to tell you. But with that being the case, we do get to see that they immediately start hitting with the jokes. They start bang, and bang, and bang, and bang, and bang. And once again, I know most of this, if not all of it, is not Kenjaku. I even wonder if his final statement, which is a reference to another statement that was made not too long ago, I wonder if that was even real. That's the one that I do, like, I get why Takaba's ability has to work like this, because even as silly and as goofy as Kenny is, him being this silly and this goofy would be kind of out of character. So I get why Gege wrote in the fact that this is kind of Kenjaku being like infected by the symbiote that is Takaba and being forced to do certain things. But I do kind of wish, like, I wish I could know the line. Like, I wouldn't mind if Gege literally, since this is over now, I wouldn't mind if he literally gave like a breakdown of what's real Kenjaku and what's Takajaku, which may be a thing sooner than we think. But like, I do wonder, because there's some stuff in here that could lead to very interesting characterization for Kenjaku, whether it be just on the jokey front, on how silly the guy is and how good he's out with comedic timing. I swear I can speak, but it could either be development to show how good Kenny is with comedic timing, which we know he kind of is. He's a silly guy. Or it could tell us actual interesting backstory about Kenny. But I'm not sure if any of it's real. Especially since in this chapter, we get no internal monologue. Well, at least in this section right here, where we get hypothetical lore for Kenny, we get no internal monologue confirming what's real, what's fake. So it kind of leaves me in this point where I understand why Gege did it that way, because once again, maybe Kenjaku doling out self-lore is super out of character. He likes to yap about the things he cares about, and presumably the last thing he cares about is his backstory. But I don't know, especially if what this chapter is advertising towards the end is actually true, and this is the last time we'll see Kenny, at least conventionally, as Kenny. Some actual proper backstory and characterization would have been good. But once again, we'll talk about it. We're going to probably have a little hefty chunker of a discussion towards the end of this chapter review, and talking about why I think one way or another Kenny's not actually cooked. But of course, that is the Kenny Coper in me. So, and someone asked me this full discussion, why are you coping for the villains now? And that is such a weird thing, right? That's a good question. I just think they're neat. I don't know. I just think they're a pretty interesting gaggle of individuals, if I do say so myself. So if you're wondering why, that's why I'm hoping for the villains, and also other things. Once again, we have a couple things to talk about towards the end of this chapter, and we see that. Sorry, I went on that whole tangent. Hey, what's up, everybody? Sorry, hold on. I need to get into character. I'm a scientist. Experiments are what I do. Yes. You free on Wednesday? Why now? We've already started. I mean, he's just asking you a question, Takaba. Is you free on Wednesday, broski? How good are you at carrying pianos? You seem pretty buff. But now, we see that Takaba drops one of the realest lines I've ever heard. And here's the thing. I want to know. How many of y'all rock with this? I'm free, unless it's to help a friend move. Oh, then never mind. I will go get Sora and Riku. I'm sorry. But with that being the case, I've noticed this. It's true. I try to help my homies out whenever I can, especially if they're moving, because I don't want them to hurt themselves. But I've realized, because it's been done to me, and I was tempted to do it to one other person once, but admittedly, I'm very, very stubborn. I don't like asking for help. So typically, if you try to ask someone to help you do any sort of strenuous labor, whether it be moving your house or help coming to do yard work or anything of the sort, most people will suddenly, mystically, magically be busy. Somehow. For some reason. Are y'all like that? Are y'all like, because here's the thing, I don't even blame y'all anymore. Because like typically, you go to your friends in your free time to not work. So I get why you don't want to work. But I don't know. That just hit like a different part of my soul. Like that, if you want to talk about soul resonance from last chapter, that was some soul resonance right there. But we see that Kenjaku lets out a sigh and says, oh, never mind. I'll just have to get Zennis. But we see that Takaba naturally realizes, oh, you were going to ask for my help to move, weren't you? Kenjaku doesn't even honor it anything more than it. But like, once again, this is part of the bit. But does Kenny actually have a home? I don't think Kenny has stocks. Like, he leaps from body to body, though, and he assumes their name. But, like, of course, the Culling Games would recognize... But then again, the Culling Games didn't even recognize Kenny as Kenny. It recognizes him as Suguru Geto. So, like, does he actually have a house somewhere? Where does he live? Like, notably, we know he spent a whole bunch of time in Dagon's domain as the hideout, but, like, that's it? Does he have a home? Like, where did him and Ume stay for the last 1,000 years? Were they just, like, Are they honey bun victims? Were they just on the street a majority of the time until Dagon was born? Were there just multiple Dagons over time and Kenny kept bumming away in their domain expansion? Like, I don't know. It brings up so many interesting questions, but I don't think it's real. It's just a part of the bit. And we see that they go back to reality, but not really, as Kenjaku says, "Hi, we're Pinchan. Remember us as Pinch and Chance." And I will look that up, because maybe that will be the more specific reference, but I highly doubt it, because I still have no idea about comedy. Pinch, and I swear I can type. I did not just type in the... I typed and. Pin and Chance. They turned into Pinch and Chance. Oh, wait. Ooh, Pinch? I have... Wait. Is the second indie Japanese single group Japanese Melon? What? Collaboration of New Roots? There's so many different things, I have no idea. This is most likely a reference. Please tell me what it is a reference to. I still thank everybody for telling me who Bandit Keith was. I had to look that man up. I had no idea who it was. So this is probably a pretty obvious reference to something. I have no idea, though. And we see that Takaba, once again, is sort of falling behind Kenjaku as he says, "Hey, but our names are Takaba and Kenjaku, just in case you're wondering. Anyway, we're pleased to meet you." Takaba's so formal about it. Like, I don't know. I know comedy has definitely evolved. And once again, I've been to my fair share of comedy shows in life, so I've seen the different styles. I've seen the solo acts. I've seen the duos. I've seen trios. I've seen whole quartets. I've seen the people who go for the rapid fire jokes. I've seen the people who go for the dirty jokes, people who go for the clean jokes, people who go for the storytelling jokes. I've seen it all. But I'll admit, I didn't take Takaba for the straight man archetype. But he really, like, throughout this entire interaction, he's playing the straight man. I don't know. I mean, like, once again, it makes sense, and you can definitely see how, once again, I mentioned this earlier on, how it's reflected in both of their characters and how they're portrayed here. But for some reason, Takaba being the straight man just never crossed my mind as a thing that would be. Because he seemed like the opposite. It seemed like he'd be the person who's going too far. But I guess, once again, that's just because he had people who weren't willing to go far enough, and Kenny's more than willing to commit to the bit. So Takaba, low-key, he's being challenged right now by Big Papa Kenny. And we see this challenge stand tall because they begin a bit with Momotaro. And I know Momotaro. I Googled Momotaro. Most of this is going to go over my head still. So, like, if there are jokes within jokes, don't be afraid to explain them to me. I am not the sharpest spoon in the kitchen shed. Any of your explanations would be amazingly appreciated, especially with this Momotaro bit, because I feel like I know just enough about Momotaro to get a general gist of it, but I know just not enough about Momotaro to miss the more specific jokes. Because yes, the jokes will be funnier to me once you explain them to me. I wish I was kidding, but that's actually how my brain works. If I don't get the logic or the reference behind a joke, it's not funny, but once I learn it, give me like a few minutes, and then it'll slowly click in my brain. The information will like retroactively sort itself, and then be loaded back into the joke. And it's like a time loop thing where my brain will be like, "Oh wow, now I get the joke, so now that's funny." So please explain everything. But with that being the case, we see that Takaba naturally asks, "You familiar with Momotaro?" And we see Kenjaku. I'll admit, who is it? It's like Boichi. I don't even say Nomura. I love Nomura's art, but I wouldn't say Nomura. From Blue Lock, by the way. Boichi from Dr. Stone. I've reread all of Dr. Stone recently. I may have to do a Dr. Stone retrospective, especially since that limited edition series is coming out on whatever basis. But because my thoughts have changed on the ending. I used to be really like it. I didn't talk about Dr. Stone for a while because I really didn't like the ending, and I still have mixed thoughts on it. There's so many mixed ideas about the back end pacing of that story. But I'm thinking of like sheer artistic stuff here. I think it's Gege. Then I think realistically it's Nakaba Suzuki. And most likely it's not Hori. I love Hori. Actually, no, you can throw Hori in there too. I'd say those three are like the ones who really could not care less about messing with the characters' faces. And like notably, I believe if you're going to be drawing a whole figure, you should use the whole figure to show off emotion and dynamism. And every little bit of posing helps with a character if you can see the whole thing. It's kind of like how Xehanort is one of my favorite examples of this. And it's something I actually commonly do in life. typically, if you wanted Xehanort, or if you just wanted a villain to charge a dark energy attack for one reason or another, you could just have them raise their hand and boom, and then the dark energy fires out. It's fine enough. It works. And once again, it can add to characterization. The simpleness and the cleanness behind the charging displays how the villain is. Typically, it's just a little bit boring, though. So what did Nomura and the team do when they were, and not Nomura from Pula, but why are two of my favorite Nomuras both Nomuras? Tetsuya Nomura. Well, I'm not sure if this was an individual choice by him. He is the director of the series, but I'm not sure how much input he had on Xehanort's animations. But like, instead of just raising a blast to fire a dark energy beam or use any magic, I love how Xehanort does the the motions of the hand add so much more expression to the character, and it's to the point where I've even adopted it. Like, just, I don't do that in general scenarios, but like if ever I'm hanging out with my friends and I'm like wanting to give me something, I'm like, yes, come bring it here, and then like I'll do the cleanse that Xehanort does, and that's a little bit strange. It's a little bit extra, but it sticks more in your memory. And the same thing can be done with facial expressions. Other mangaka, I've seen it, and I don't even blame them for it. They're a little bit afraid to mess with the face too much. They're a bit afraid to go too far off model. But I'd say Boichi, especially with some certain panels in Dr. Stone, I'd say my hero, Horikoshi Kohei, and he's been willing to do it before too, and Gege, they're willing to mess with the shapes of the characters' faces, which makes them much more expressive and adds so much more personality to them, which is very, very nice. Once again, I don't blame people for trying to stay on model. I literally have a model sheet for my avatar. All of his variations. I barely stay on model. But that's not it. That's not because I'm trying to make artistic or stylistic choices, just because I can't stay on model. So I give credit to mangaka who can very clearly stay on model, like Gege, like Horikoshi, like Boichi, but specifically to choose to go off model. It adds a lot of extra detail and a lot of extra characterization, which I really, really like. But with this being the case, Kenjaku has so much disgust. Once again, maybe it's not Kenjaku. Maybe this isn't characterization for Kenjaku. That's the thing. I don't know. Every single time I get into the groove of like, oh, this Kenjaku showing us more of his true self. Because realistically, how often do we see Kenjaku? The Yuki and Choso fight. Now. Glimpses before his appearance in Shibuya. And even in Shibuya, he gets like 2 solid chapters back to back. Then Yuki shows up and he dips for like a fat chunk of the series. And he like appears in 220. So, and he has the like building up to the external invasion plot. Like, Kenjaku's a pretty sparse character in the narrative for how important he is. He's literally for all intents and purposes, bro is Xehanort. like I'll be completely real, bro is Xehanort. He kind of wrote the plot for all intents and purposes. And I know all the caught up Cage fans are gonna be like, well, technically, shouldn't you be calling Kenjaku the Master of Masters? And yes, I should. But like, I'm going to call Kenjaku Birth by Sleep Xehanort. The Master of Masters, at least from my understanding of his characterization, seems to believe he's working for some sort of higher purpose. How valid that is, I don't know. But at least he's given that excuse before. Xehanort in Kingdom Hearts 3 claims he is working for some sort of higher purpose. Claims, because I don't think that Nomura should have added that. And honestly, I would have preferred Xehanort staying in his base, Kenjaku as motivation, even though Xehanort did it first, then Birth by Sleep, because Birth by Sleep came out when? Dream Drop was 2012. I think Birth by Sleep came out 2010. But I love Birth by Sleep Xehanort and I love Kenjaku because they're both just guys being dudes who want to do things because they're guys who can do things because they're dudes. And I like that characterization. And with that being the case, I really like Kenny, and I would love to see more of him. But I guess maybe that take away from the allure of Kenny. And maybe that's why we don't get too many settings of him, despite how important he is. But that's why I compare Kenjaku very specifically to Birth by Sleep Xehanort, because their goals are similar. Why do you want to start another Keyblade War? Because I want to see it. Why do you want to fuse all the people of Japan together? Because I want to see it. No other reason. Like, I'm just interested to see what it would do. That's why I love Birth by Sleep Xehanort so much. Well, also, Leonard Nimoy has a large part of that. I wish I could do. There's so many Kingdom Hearts voices that I wish I had access to. Someone told me I sounded like Zenmus, and I'm still riding the high from that. I think that was like I come from like a week and a half ago. So one of y'all told me I sounded like Zenmus, and that tickled my heart because Sora, do you think you can trust Riku? I can't do. I don't know. I need to. Despite how much I listen to Zenith's lines, I wish I could properly do his voice. Ben Diskin. I like him as young Xehanort. Not a voice I'm particularly interested in taking. Billy Zane Ansem. Once again, it's a regular Pat Stan and me speaking up. I like Ansom's portrayal in the later games too. But Billy Zane Ansem, submit! I can't do it to save my life. And Leonard Nimoy Xehanort. Why do I want to voice all the villains? I can hit a mean Vexen though. Or at least in my mind I can hit a mean Vexen. But I don't think it actually sounds like Vexen. I try to copy the inflections, so I can't actually do the voice. But man, I wish I could steal all their voices. Because I don't know. I feel like as I get older, my voice range is actually decreasing. I swear I could do more voices before. I don't even think I can hit Mickey Mouse anymore. I used to be able to. I had a mean Mickey Mouse back in my day. I get it. Like it just sounds too high now. And I think I'm blaming that on regular Pat. I wonder if regular Pat. What is the cross section of regular Pat's interests that he would ever? This is probably going to be the most I ever mentioned regular Pat in one video, but. I think regular Pat messed me up too, because I think now where I got such a good Mickey impression from back in the day is I had a bunch of younger family members who I was always responsible for looking after, and they constantly wanted to watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. So I just kept listening to it over and over again. And then I augmented my vocal cords before my voice even got the slightest bit deeper, and I could hit a mean Mickey Mouse. But now I specifically listen to the newer Mickey Mouse from the KH games, which doesn't sound like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Mickey Mouse, despite, I believe, being the same voice actor. And also regular Pat's Mickey Mouse, which has confused it. So now it's like, it's super high, but it's not high in the right places for the voice to work. Like, Sora, you know what you need to do. We need to get Marvel and Kingdom Hearts, Sora. Like, I can't even do it anymore. It's gone. I don't know. Minnie, I'm sorry. Like, I can't do... man, I miss the Mickey Mouse. But that's the thing. I have my regular voice. I have my slightly deeper regular voice. I have the serious character D voice. I have, like, falsetto. I don't know where... I swear I used to be able to do more impressions. I mean, I guess Vexen. I guess I have some right. I'm sorry. This devolved into a whole voice acting rant. Back to the chapter itself. We see that Kenjaku... I don't know. I don't know if this is really Kenjaku. But they're going on with the bit, and we see Takaba says, "Come on, work with me here. All parents tell that folk tale to their kids." I know I'm not from Japan. I was about to make a joke. My parents didn't tell me that. I don't even know how I heard about Momotaro. I'm an anime and manga fan. I know exactly why I heard of Momotaro. But with it being the case, we see that Kenjaku, once again, I wish this was characterization. He says, "Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Seriously? Dad wasn't around. And Mom was always busy." Like, I wish this was true. Kind of. I don't know. I've always headcanoned Kenjaku as the kind of guy who kind of had everything handed to him on a silver platter. He just wasn't satisfied. Like he probably had loving parents. If y'all seen The Last Wish, I'm not even sure if I can say the first part of it. The Last Wish. You know Jack Horner from that movie? I think Kenjaku and him have literally the exact same backstory. I think Kenjaku had a thriving family business or was in a high position of power, just got bored one day with the life he was living and decided, fine, I'm just going to live life how I see fit, and that involves being a terrible human being. That's what I believe, because I don't think the whole, "Dad wasn't around. Sora left me. And Loxine, she was always busy." That's not even vexing. But with that being the case, I wish this was characterization. I don't buy it, though. And we see that Tonka was like, sorry, that must be a sore subject. And, once again, I know it's for the bit. I can understand Tonka was like, apprehension here, where you're like, press that wrong button. Because that happens all the time. It's like when you go to make a joke, and like the joke lands, but then they tell you, that lines up very specifically with my very specific case of trauma. And you're like, like it's just that awkward silence afterwards. But we see that Kenjaku once again was just playing the bit as he says, "I'm a scientist. Experiments are what I do. Yes. I don't know what you think about fatherless homes, but I was happy. I had a loving mother who read stories to me all the time, like Sorotaro." It goes away. I think I only have that line. And even then, I don't think it sounds like Vexen. Why am I... I'm asking. I was about to ask, why am I so Kingdom Hearts focused right now? I don't know why I bothered to ask that live question. I know why. But we see that Takaba's bamboozled. So you did know it. Why'd you lie? Because I'm lonely and crave attention. Because my mom was busy. Once again, we see Kenjaku just keeps flipping the story. And I assume whoever this is, someone tell me. This is probably a famous dude. I don't know. It's like, for the longest time, I thought Kizaru from One Piece was based on Jeff Goldblum. Because they looked very similar to me. But then someone pointed out he's based on another famous actor from Japan. I was like, oh, well. So that's probably a case. Like, the guy looks familiar. But I have no idea who this is. So feel free to let me know who this is in the comment section. But we see that they start to butt heads. You're a bit too harsh at the start. Oh, I noticed when you clicked your tongue at me. I did not. Where's that one? Once again, I don't know. All the voices in my head, they're starting to blend together. They're taking over. But we see. I may do it. I'll see. But we see that both are kind of getting on each other's nerves. Once again, most likely for the bit. As we see. What's your prop? I can't do it. I'm sensitive to mood, so I'll tell you old tales to lighten things up. Well, I'm too dumb to understand that. Maybe you'd prefer a dog and a monkey and a pheasant for friends. No. I was employing a literary convention. Like I said, I'm too dumb for that. Takaba? Me? Locked in for real. I get some references, some jokes. I didn't like Harry Potter, and a lot of my friends love Harry Potter. Thusly, a lot of those references go over my head. I got some of them, like through cultural osmosis, but I understand the literary conventions breaking ankles. Because sometimes I'm quick with it. Sometimes I can catch a good joke and be like, I see what you did there. But half the time, it's just like radio static in my head. There's nothing going on up here. A solid 90% of the time. I'm lying. It's 99% of the time. It might as well be an empty balloon. I don't know how I function. I still can't read. But with that being the case, we see that Kenjaku says, Momotaro was actually born after the old man and woman ate a rejuvenating peach and... I don't even know how to translate this one. Knocked boots, got down and dirty, did the horizontal tango, ate a little fancy mango. Like, I don't know. But, I mean, most likely. And we see that Tug was like, too much info, man. But, yeah, that's one theory. Of all the things I expected to do today, reading about alternate theories of Momotaro's conception, they were not one of them. But we do get to see that Takaba says, but then again, is this Takaba? Because this seems like it's Kenny. But then he says, I wouldn't know, I'm too dumb, Miss Porter. But you never know until you try. I'm off to fight demons, Granny. And so I'll switch voices. Riku! No, I'm not gonna. I cannot even do regular Pat Sora, not to talk of Haley Joel Osment Sora. That's another voice I'd like to have, though. That'd be fun. I don't know. If I could just like download the entire Kingdom Hearts voice roster and just be able to switch through them at any time, I think I'd be happy. But with that being the case, we see that Kenjaku switches to the boy, as he says, I wouldn't know. I'm too dumb. But you never know until you try. I'm off to fight demons, Granny. Which, ironically enough, works for Kenjaku. Because, he can literally fight and absorb demons. But we see that Takaba taking the Granny says, hello, my child, not too fast. My Granny voice overlaps so much with my Frieza. Momotaro, you filthy monkey. Take these kibby dumplings with you. So does Frieza sound like an old woman, or do old women sound like Frieza? I mean, old women came first. So I guess old women sound like Frieza. Huh. That's a revelation I didn't think I was going to have today. But, Momotaro, come take these kibby dumplings with you. No, I can't. No can do. I've got a phobia of that people of... I swear he can read, guys. No, I know can't do. I got a phobia of food that people make by hand. So all food. Do you just not eat? What food isn't made by hand? I guess all processed food, I guess, but even isn't that like legally in some way, shape, or form made by hand? Like I'm not sure. I mean, maybe there's some food that is literally never touched by human hands. But like you can't eat out then. That's food made by people. You can't eat your own food. That's food made by people. You can't eat obviously other people's food. That's food made by like. How do you do that? Starve? And that's always the illusion I got. Do you just starve? I don't know. But we see that Takaba says, "Shut up and take it, you filthy monkey." Why is it? You know the two voices? I guess legally three, but I can only do like Kid. Does Kid Buu even count as a voice? I can hit TFS in Perfect Cell specifically. Frieza generally, I think Martin from TFS plays Frieza relatively close to the original. Then again, I haven't listened to original Frieza in forever. And Kid Buu. Such a random... It's only main villains. I cannot do a single, like, protagonist character from Dragon Ball. Nothing near their voice. I can at least hit the ha-ha from Mickey. I cannot do a single thing. But... no can do, Grandma. I got a phobia of food that make people bad. I swear I can read. I promise you I can read. I promise. But we see that Kenjaku go on. Do I give the imperfect Cell voice? I should stick with the kid voice. I don't know. I'm having so much fun because this is the like presumably this is the last bit of silly goofiness we're gonna have for a while. So allow me to be a little silly goofy myself.
Uncle Piccolo cells. That's not good for me. Also not good for me.
I can't do.
But they do look delicious. As an old woman taking it easy on her pension, you must have spent a lot of time making them. But the elderly are a burden on younger generations, so I'll be glad when I don't have to see your ugly mug anymore, old bat.
That fell out of Imperfect Cell so quick and turned into a bad Joker. But with that being the case, you want to talk about some hypocrisy? Once again, I assume this is Kenjaku speaking for Takaba speaking for Kenjaku through Kenjaku. But like, the elderly are a burden on younger generations. Of all the characters in the series to say that, the oldest living character, like consistently living. I don't think Sukuna counts. No offense to Sukuna. I don't think he counts. Him being a finger for 1,000 years, or 20 fingers for 1,000 years, I don't think that counts. I don't think bro was like actively sentient. For the only character who lived an active life for over, at bare minimum, 1,000 years, because he's from the Heian period. I think he's from before, but I've heard that maybe that Drew thing was a mistranslation, and like Drew somehow managed to incarnate twice somehow. I don't know, but oldest living consistent character. He's legally correct because the elderly are in fact a burden on the younger generations. Look at Sukuna, look at Urame or Ume or something, and look at Kenjaku. You want to talk about the elderly being a burden on younger generations? There's no greater burden than that trio of old heads. What? You want to talk about the pot calling the kettle black? But of course, it's likely Takaba speaking. And we see Takaba saying,
"You're the worst, you filthy monkey."
I'm sorry. Every single time I go into Frieza, it automatically comes out. Because that, like, once again, I'm not actually a proper voice actor. People have told me I could be a voice actor. And I keep sending out the auditions. I don't get anything. But that's just, once again, because I mess around a whole lot. But a lot of voice actors, at least the ones I know, like people who, I have a friend who's trying to be an active voice actor. And whenever he goes into certain voices, he has like trigger lines that allow him to lead into the rest of the voice. And for me, it varies. For Mickey, it's the ha-ha, because it kind of gets my voice in the proper register for it. But even then, I still don't think it sounds like Mickey anymore. It sounds too much like regular Pat's Mickey. Who like my voice always becomes shaky. Like, admittedly, my voice is naturally shaky as it is. But whenever I do Mickey, it always just it sounds like he's on the verge. It never sounds consistent, I swear. It sounds like something's looming over Mickey every single time I do Mickey. I can't just speak with him normally. It always sounds so breathy. But it's the ha-ha for Mickey. For Vexen, it's obviously, I'm a scientist. Experiments are what I do. Yes. And I can't just do part of the line. I have to fully go into it. For Frieza, it's filthy monkey. Like, and I know people are going to say, oh, friendly fire. Hey, I'm copying Chris Harris. You leave me alone. And for Cell, Imperfect Cell specifically, he doesn't actually have one. At least not one that I consistently flop back and forth with him. Ironically enough, the trigger line I used to use for him was when, I forget which episode of TFS it is. I was watching 4-Star Bento, Team 4-Star's breakdowns of their own stuff. I was watching them. I forget when. It was when Takaverse appeared. I think it was like 2 episodes later. It was the mostly filler episode.
But it's my name is Nick.
One moment.
My name is Nicky Town. Who are you?
That was my trigger line for Imperfect Cell for the longest time. Because I had that conversation locked in my brain for so long. But that's Imperfect Cell, which is already a voice that Takahata 101 does, doing another voice within the voice. Like, it's like doing an impression of a character while you're impersonating another character. Like, I can't do it because your boy's not that skilled. But that's the thing. That used to be my trigger line for Imperfect Cell, but that would play out the rest of the conversation. But I don't actually remember how well that conversation goes.
My name is Nicky Town. Who are you? My name is Imperfect Cell.
Like something about that conversation was always the key for me. Can't do it now anymore. And then, like, any pitch shifts that aren't specific, like generic voices, like Surfer Dude voice has absolutely no lead in. Like, I can just hit that raw. Like, I hit the waves raw, broski. You know what I'm talking about? And then deep voice is just deep voice. Like, I just lower my palate even more than usual. Regular voice is just regular voice. Like, obviously, I speak like this all the time. But any specific voice, they typically have a lead in line. And if they don't, it's usually one of my weaker voices. But admittedly, my voices have been getting generally weaker for a while now. I need to practice. I need to live stream more. That was good practice for me whenever I was live streaming, because I consistently switch voices. But we see another character who I do not get the reference of. Once again, he looks familiar though, but that may just be me getting familiar with the images from the chapter. Though we see that Kenny wishes for Takaba, who's playing the granny, to
don't perish yet, okay?
And we see Frieza, Takaba, Granny say,
oh, how sweet of you.
It happened.
You're already packing my good graces. Ain't that funny?
And then we see they immediately break character again as suddenly, I guess Kenny switches the joke here. He goes, look, a golden retriever. Make it a Japanese breed, dude. It's too jarring. Maybe a mutt or a Shiba Inu. Fun fact, did you know that mutts are exclusive to Japan? I didn't. Now I do. But we see that suddenly he switches bits from Momotaro and the granny over to the dumplings? No, he switches it from the Momotaro reference to the dog, which I'm not sure if that's a reference to something in Momotaro. I have no idea. And then he switches back to the dumplings that Takaba Granny was handing to him.
These dumplings are tasty. They even won a gold prize. Like,
and why did I give him the granny? Once again, like I said, the voices are gonna hop everywhere. But I don't know. I'm losing my mind reading this again. It's unlike 242, which was very much explicit insanity, which I could like fall further into. 243 is like subtle insanity. It's driving me insane trying to think about it. And we see that Takaba's mad because
every fried chicken joint wins that. Not winning is what's hard.
And we see that Kenjaku asked an actual question.
Wait, is it okay to give dogs dumplings?
And then we see Takaba break character again when he says, okay, chill out. Now you're being too realistic. And we see that Kenny, fully committed to the bit, is like,
I better not. Well, experiments are what I do. Yes. It may have onions in it.
And we see Takaba realize that,
that's a good point. After all, onions are toxic to dogs.
I learned that today, too. I did not know that. I know chocolate. I know there's certain things. There's something else that dogs aren't supposed to eat. I now know onions. I know chocolate. There's one other thing I forget that dogs are not supposed to eat, which is always awful because I swear your dog is never faster. There are 2 times when your dog is faster than the speed of light And it's one, when you let them outside and you blink and they're halfway down the street, you need to run out in the freezing cold, barefoot, because you were not expecting to have to run into a snowstorm to go chase your dog that decided bolting its way down the street after leaving its warm, comfortable home because you just let it out to go use the bathroom real quick. You didn't think that was an idea, and to go chase it. Thankfully, it was a tiny dog, meaning its tiny little legs couldn't get it too far as it bolted at Mach 5, and then you were able to grab it and drag it back to the house, and then proceed to never do that again. Or when something drops on the floor that they very specifically shouldn't be eating. Heaven forbid it was just a regular piece of meat that dropped on the floor that they could eat and be like, fine, whatever. No, it has to be that one thing that's extremely toxic to them. Like a piece of chocolate that you weren't even eating, that someone else at the table was eating, and they immediately lunged for, and then you have to dive straight down, scoop them up, and tackle them 15 feet across the room to make sure they don't immediately on that, and immediately get themselves in trouble. Those are the two times dogs are faster than anything in the universe, including the suction of a black hole. And it's consistent. I've seen it all. Dogs of different kinds, varieties, shapes, and sizes. They're beast monsters whenever they feel like it. But we do get to see that Kenjaku is so deep into the bit that he says, "Oh, look, there's a phone number on the column." I can't do Brian Blessed either. What am I doing with these imbeciles? I can't do it. Miss Porter. Note to self: watch more regular Pat. Watch more regular Pat. I guess rewatch Tarzan. I haven't seen that movie in decades, but we see that I think literally decades, as in two. But we see that Takaba's super shot once again playing the straight man. He's like, enough with the details. It's too jarring. And we see Kenjaku go, hello. Yes, this is I think it's a golden. Oh, it's a Labrador. No, you're yanking it up with the dog's owner? The owner lives in Narima. That's about 30 minutes on foot. What about fighting demons? I'll call the demon island a cancel. I wonder if the phone number on the website. Oh, it has a profile on the tablog site. And we see Takaba of all people once again ask, must you be so jarring? And like, once again, I understand Takaba's experience. Because you think you're a silly, funny, goofy dude until you run into the sillier, funnier, goofier dude. So I can't even knock Takaba's hustle here. I also understand his shock, horror, and confusion at not just meeting his match, but meeting someone beyond his match. But at the same time, I'm not sure if this is really Kenny or if it's Kenny being brain drained. Such is the beauty and terror of Takaba. But with that being the case, we see that Kenjaku laughs at the idea that, oh, it only has 2.1 stars. And we see that Takaba asks why everything went dark. We lost in the shadow. Lost to the darkness. Am I an android too? Yes. I'm sorry. One from Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, I'm losing my mind. I'm sorry. Don't worry. I'll probably be back to normal pencil after this. In 244, I'll most likely, unless Takaba gets up again, then maybe I'll lose my mind all over again. Because I'm under the influences of Takaba's technique too. If anything seems remotely out of character, from my inability to do voices to my random tangents that are even more random than my usual random tangents, to anything, it's Takaba's fault. He transcends fiction, by the way. He's right behind me. And he's right behind you. Don't turn around. He doesn't have any clothes on. But with that being the case, we see that Kenjaku just keeps playing the bit. Hello, I'd like to cancel my reservation for today. Oh, there's a cancellation fee. Fine, we'll pay it. And we see Takaba go on and says, here's what I'll do. I'll send the monkey and pheasant ahead to fight. And we see Takaba, worried about the reactions that they could get for that. He's like, hold on a second. Yes, the demons are sure to kick their... Kick there? What do you mean? What do you mean I can't cuss? No, please, let me. Fine, the demons are sure to kick their butts. Didn't you learn in school that the piecemeal attacks don't work? Idiot, have you ever heard of air supremacy? They can't touch a pheasant in flight. They'll be dropping... Can I even say it? They'll be dropping booty bombs everywhere. The booty bombs, they'll be like crazy. And... Once again, I don't think this is Kenjaku. I think Takaba's brain drained him again. And booty blasts are awesome. And Takaba would ask the natural question, are you in elementary school or something? Really? Booty bombs? La bomba de booty? How do you say? I'm not even gonna Google translate that way. But we see that Takaba brings up the idea of, looks like we have to choose between. Oh wait, no. This is Kenjaku still. Once again, you see how confusing this whole chapter is confusing to me. Looks like we have to choose between erasing Sora's memories. I may actually be a Xehanort vessel. Don't question my no names on the wall behind me. Or the gazing. I really prefer no name versus the gazing eye for that Keyblade. I really do. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, no name just always seemed cool to me. But the gazing eye is fine enough. But with that being the case, easing John's owner's worry. Nothing about erasing Sora's memory. I don't know where that came from. Once again, I may be ignored it. But we see that Takaba was like, dude, the dog does not need a name. Why am I giving Takaba such a surfer dude voice? I swear I've forgotten all their traditional voices. Or sparing my animal sidekicks' lives. Once again, Kenjaku doesn't even give Takaba the time of day. And we see that Takaba was like, obviously sparing lives is more important. And that is true. Takaba's whole philosophy is about sparing lives. And we see that Kenjaku declares, anyway, I'm firing the pheasant. And Takaba is so shocked that Momotaro would fire the pheasant. As he goes, what? Why? And we see that Kenny smacks it up with a pun and says, so the owner doesn't quail and worry. I've had a drum set. Wait, hold on a minute. I'm not looking that up on you. Well, you get it. Nice pun. And the crowd's up out of their seats. I can confirm they're not up out of their seats. But with being the case, we see that Kenjaku notices something. Sora, what's wrong? I was about to transition into Zemna's voice. Are you afraid you can't trust Riku? Nah, but with that being the case, we see Kenny naturally ask, what's wrong? And we see Takaba say, I just realized this has to end. It's my dream performance. And this goes back to a point I brought up in the spoiler discussion. It was very interesting hearing you guys' thoughts on that. The idea of living a fantasy, living the dream, and how you would choose that, and how ultimately maybe our subconscious guides us towards the ideas of fantasy in order to try and make those fantasies realities. So maybe our dreams won't just be our final fantasies. 7 remake. Part 2? What's the second part of that game called? But would that be the case? That is a important idea, right? Takaba knows it can't last forever. And he says, your fans love how you look, but they don't know the first thing about comedy. But I like even them. They're adorable. I didn't notice this. The fan, Kenkun, and I love how the hearts have stitches on them. That's such a nice detail. And I love how Levi and stitches, because of the stitches, like that's so adorable. Once again, this doesn't look like Gege's art style though. Something about the way these two characters are drawn looks like they were drawn by another person, or Gege just spontaneously decided to switch art styles. And I can't knock it also. Once again, no one's standing up. They're all in their seats, if they're even real. Once again, realize Takaba's going to wipe all these people from existence. They have families, backgrounds, hopes, dreams, final fantasies of their own. They'll never be able to live them out. They will be erased from existence. Every single one of them. For a guy who doesn't believe in taking life, he sure does love to create it and destroy it. Because he's a monster. No, I'm kidding. Well, it depends on how real you think these people are. Because once again, as he says, it's all but a dream. He went the distance to be dropped in. I have, for some reason, on such a heavy Kingdom Hearts kick for this video. It's probably because I don't care about missing Link, and I just want 4. But I know I'm not seeing 4 till the second part of Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out, and even then, I'm most likely not seeing that for another year. When is the second part of Final Fantasy VII Remake coming out? I think it has a name, right? Final FF7 Remake. Does it even have a release date? P2. Release. When are you coming out? Logo. February 20. Whoa, really? Trilogy. Oh, okay. Well, we should get 4. I mean, February 24th? How long since Kingdom Hearts 3? Kingdom Hearts 3, 2019? 2019? I think 2019. Early 2019, though. So I think it's been about 5 years. The distance, we're getting closer and closer. I don't think we're at least gonna have a whole year of just Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. At bare minimum. Because Final Fantasy 16, 17, that was this year. That was 2023. So maybe we could get a 2025. But man, 2025, it would literally be another 6 years between releases. Man, Kingdom Hearts, bro. Kingdom Hearts, I mean, I love it. But then again, there's 6 years between releases of Zelda games. I need to make a review on Tears of the Kingdom. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked all over again. I need to make a review on Spider-Man 2, too, because that's another thing I want to talk about. Would y'all be interested in that? If you're here, if you're here for 2 minutes into the video where I've lost my good mind, are y'all interested in hearing my thoughts on Tears of the Kingdom and Spider-Man 2? Let me know, because I do have thoughts. I do have thoughts on both of those games. There's a lot of positive, some negative. Like, I have opinions. Let me know if you don't want to hear that. Because admittedly, I've been narrowing down content just because, like, I know some people are like, man, I wish this guy would post more stuff that I'd be interested in. And I'm thinking of going back. I'm thinking of bringing some content back, maybe leaving some content go. I'll see. I mean, I'm in a very speculative mood for 2024. There's a lot of stuff in there. But we see, and Takaba says, I don't want this to end. I don't want it. And you see he drops a fat old booger. And we see that Kenjaku comforts him and says, don't worry. Experiments are what we do. Yes. And he pats Takaba on the chest. And ultimately, this ends the false dream. The dream of 2 men who just wanted a good old laugh. And Takaba's in Ghost Attire. I've heard a lot of people saying Takaba perishes this chapter, but I don't buy it. I don't know. Something about him actively perishing here feels weird. Feels a little bit weird. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Gege did it, because once again, if what happened at the end of this chapter is sticking, and Kenny's cooked, then I guess he doesn't serve a purpose anymore, unless they were going to, like, bring him against Sukuna, but, like, Itadori's already fighting Sukuna. Gege's insane. Like, probably needs clinical help, but I don't think they're that insane. I don't think they're magically gonna spawn Takaba on Sukuna as well. I think Yuji and Hikaru are already dropping in there. I think that's kind of a deadlock for Takaba. So I'm not sure what else Takaba do in the narrative. So I'm not saying him perishing here would be impossible. I just feel a little bit weird. But with that being the case, we see he's in Ghost Attire, and he thanks Kenjaku. Though admittedly, this is once again the question. Based on what happens later on in this chapter, how much of this is real? Because Takaba thanks him, and we see Kenjaku say, you cracked me up. And this is such a sweet panel, right? This is clearly a reference to stand proud, you're strong, or I will never forget you. Like obviously this is a similar thing to that, but I'm not sure if this is real. Because someone decided to fly back in from Africa. Because look who's here. Mr. Speedy Gonzalez himself. Yuta, of course. And once again, I gave him credit for this in the spoilers, and we're going to give him credit for this here as well. Bro doesn't even have a scabbard on him. Bro said, I refuse to whip. Like, let me see. How's he holding that bad boy? Really, it's kind of weird how he's holding it. But I guess, once again, I don't actually know how to wield a sword. But he's wielding it like this. He's got the blade in seemingly enough reverse grip, which, like... Well, actually, no. Maybe it's not reverse grip. I can't tell how he's holding it. Like, technically, he could be holding it like this, because it's like he has a scabbard, the way he's crouched up. I thought maybe he was holding it like this, but that's probably just the Ventus fan in me. So, like, he's holding it like this, and he swings. Once again, it's very interesting, right? Because I guess you could argue by his hair here, there's supposed to be motion lines, but I want y'all to watch this sequence with me closely. We're gonna do a bit-by-bit breakdown. So, Yuta, he appears, but actually... Before we even get into this whole bit-by-bit breakdown. Take me back. Look where Kenjaku's standing. Now, this is where the Kenny Copium is going to come in, and it's going to come in strong. I'd put pause on it, but y'all know what I'm about. Y'all know what I'm about. So, look where Kenny's standing here. He is probably about, like... solid. I'm going to need you in a second, so I probably shouldn't sheathe you, but I'm going to sheathe you anyway. I don't want to accidentally grab you again. But Kenjaku is standing like maybe 2 steps away from Takaba here. I want you to remember this. He's standing a solid 2 steps away from Takaba. There's like barely, like maybe you could fit Yuta here, or even just a regular person here, maybe. I think the only character that could reasonably fit here is the disgusting absolute waste of space, ink, time, memory, storage, data, whatever storage metric or comprehensive understanding that Phil, known as Panda, may be able to fit in here. But honestly, unless he's getting torn in half by both of them, I kind of don't want to see that. But look where Kenjaku's standing. Now, clearly, Yuta spawns in directly behind Kenjaku. If Kenny's here, and Takaba's body is here, Yuta spawns in here, directly behind Kenjaku, right? Kenjaku, Big Papa Yaku, he turns around, which already is kind of weird, I'm not going to lie, considering we know that the gravity technique, the Cursonic reversal of anti-gravity, it's a 360-degree attack, so why Kenny turns around here is kind of weird, but this whole, like, once again, Gang is typically pretty good at the shot composition, but this whole thing feels kind of weird because we see Kenny turn around. He does the full 180. So once again, remember, Takaba's body is here. Kenny's body is here. Yuta spawns in behind Kenny. Kenny turns around, goes to do something, activate the Curse Technique Reversal, but he's not even able to get the full name out. Curse Technique Reversal Anti-Gravity Engine. He's not able to get engine out. As Yuta, he completes the swing. He completes it just straight. Whole clean swing through. And now here's where the copium starts. So let me get to huffing. Yuta ends up behind Kenjaku, which could just be a speed blitz, right? Because notably, I'm in the camp that technically this can't be fully counted as an off guard. The only thing you'd be able to argue off guard is like, since Kenny's senses are dulled, maybe his cursed energy reinforcement is dull and everything, and like he's activating everything again while Yuta's clearly on the ready. So like there's definitely questions and differences here on whether or not Kenny was actually at full power when he got But notably, the reason I feel like this is so weird is because note the absence of motion lines here. Yuta's perfectly still here, presumably due to the lack of motion lines. Kenny's also still too. When Kenny moves, does the 180 degrees, he gets motion lines. Yuta, when he swings the blade, he gets motion lines. Yuta, even, let me see, because I'm not sure how well this will show up, but even right here, I'm going to do this and hope for the best. Editing me, I know you're going to have a fun time with this, but even here, we see motion lines on Yuta's torso when he swings, right? So, allow Mr. Non-Sword Wielder to try and show you how I believe the swing went down. So, Yuta's... We're gonna move the chair. We're gonna get extra fancy because I need to get super fancy with the Kenny Copium. Yuta squatted up. He squatted up right down here. He swings in a clean arc. He swings upward. So like either one of two things happened here. Either Yuta Okotsu, I think Yuta may have like swapped places with Kenjaku. And you're gonna see why I believe that even more in a second. But I think he swapped places with Kenjaku because notably there's no motion lines on his legs. And like, don't get me wrong, Yuta's a speedy fella. But the fact that there's absolutely no motion lines and he suddenly mystically appears behind Kenjaku feels weird. Because for him to, like, it'd be one thing if he went from squatting down, played like this, and then he stood up as he moved and swung. But no, he's still in the exact same squatted position. And since his legs have zero motion lines, the only thing that have motion lines are his upper body, it feels weird, almost as if he didn't move. The only thing that moved was his upper torso to complete the swing. And he just appears behind Kenjaku. And notably, there's also no wind rush or anything. Once again, the absence of motion lines on the leg implies a lack of movement. But the only reason I think I may just be huffing straight copium for Kenny here and trying not to get you to a whole speed blitz level above Kenny is because there's no sound effect indicating any sort of teleportation. Back when the Raws came out, I thought maybe this sound effect right here, which is revealed to be a clang, Though admittedly, it does seem weird that, like, what is his sword clanging against? Flesh? I don't know. I feel like swords don't do that. But this clang here, I thought maybe it would be like a clap or a beating sound effect or anything like that. Because this phenomena right here seems very similar to Boogie Woogie, swapping two things places. We know that it's very disorienting. You explain why Kenny gets caught off guard here, explain the lack of motion lines on Yuta's legs, and his ability to spontaneously appear behind Kenjaku. Obviously, this would imply that Toto was back in the narrative, or maybe this is Ui Ui swapping their places or something. Because obviously Yuta, unless Toto learned a thing or two about clapping with something other than his hands. Like, clearly Yuta wouldn't be able to do this, and we don't even see fully manifested Rika here. This seems like base Yuta. So, it feels strange that he was mystically magically able to do this. Though, admittedly, it feels fundamentally strange already that Kenny had to turn around to use a 360-degree technique. Like, Kenny, why didn't you just activate it? Why'd you turn? But, with that being the case, we see that Kenny brings up an idea that I was wondering about, and I kept mentioning throughout this chapter, that one way or another, Kenny was not conscious, or at least not properly conscious. Kenny was not in full control. As he mentions, or questions, how did this happen? I'm a scientist. Experiments are what I do. Yes. How did this happen? Kotsu has immense cursed energy. Why didn't I notice? Oh, I get it. I didn't want an interruption. So, Kenny's senses were dulled. Dulled to the point where he couldn't notice Yuta Okotsu, a character who at this point, I think it's pretty much inarguable, is confirmed to have this, well, unless you start counting different variations of Sukuna, right? Because then, if you're like, 9-finger, 10-finger, 11-finger, 12-finger, 13-finger, 14-finger, 15-finger, 16-finger, 17-finger, 18-finger, 19-finger, 20-finger, 21-finger, which is just 20-finger plus mummy. Like, they all have more cursed energy than Yuta, based on his own statement and his inference about Sukuna's amount of cursed energy. But Yuta very clearly, if you just count Sukuna as one entity, has the second most cursed energy of the entire series. So the fact that Kenny's senses were dull to the point where he didn't notice that, if you want to make an argument for Kenny getting off-guarded or outpaced here versus, like, actually getting speed blitz, well, he was suppressed. So suppressed that his basic senses weren't working. Like, this is essentially, imagine if, due to the fact that you were talking with somebody over the phone, that you couldn't hear a thunderclap that happened like 2 feet behind you. That's essentially what this is. Or imagine you're locking eyes with somebody, and then a bright light flashes behind you. For all intents and purposes, you should be able to see that. Essentially, Takaba put blinders on Kenny. He was so focused on... Kenny was he was forced to focus on Takaba so much that ultimately he couldn't even sense Yuta. So then you argue, well, maybe one isn't able to up their cursed energy instantaneously, and Yuta speed blitzed and off guard Kenny. And that, at least to me, it makes slightly more sense than Kenny just being able to get low diff by base Yuta. Because I don't know, this kind of like, this one feat, if we're taking the idea of Kenny being like fodder to base Yuta, Kenny goes from like arguably top 3 in the verse to like barely top 10. Because base Yuta's strong and all that, but he ain't that strong. At least he hasn't never been established to be that strong before. Like, at least it didn't seem like that. So I want to chalk it up to that. I just want to chalk it up to a sneaky plan, which is W. Like, once again, you're looking at a guy who's not mad at Yuta. Like, even as a person who loves Kenny and believes he's supposed to be the main villain, and hey, I'm still going to huff copium until he's 100% confirmed cooked, which he may be at the end of this chapter. So maybe I need to detach myself from the copium thing. But the thing is here, I'm going to assume this is Kenny off guard and having his ability suppressed by Takaba for the sake of my sanity. But that's me huffing copium. Being real with you, Yuta's just 3 in the verse. Well, how do you feel about CT Kashimo versus Yuta? How are we feeling about that? You think Yuta's regenerating the lightning bolt? You think he's dodging the electromagnetic waves? I don't think so. Who knows? I don't know. It's a weird one. Essentially, base Yuta would have to be top 4, right? Because Kenny alone is above Yuki and Choso together. And Yuki's a special grade of extreme power. and then Kenny. So like, I don't know. Feels a little bit strange. But hey, that's once again me having Kobe. Taking this at face value, it is just number 4 or number 3 in the verse. Simple mathematics. He low diffed what a lot of people, myself included, believe was the 3rd strongest character in the series in one shot. I think you could argue this is a negative diff because Kenjaku doesn't even get a single attack off before he's decapitated. I don't know how much more negative diff you get than that. So Yuta may just be him. I'm feeling weird context stuff, and I'm feeling talk about ransom interference here. I'm gonna hope Kenny was suppressed, but taking it at face value, your boy is wrong about Yuta. Though admittedly, I'm gonna say this. This is a weird play to make when you have Maki. You know what I'm saying? Like, my thing is, right? I understand how people are gonna be like, well, narrative's cooked. They sent Yuta and not Maki. Which just, it feels weird to me, though. Because tell me why Maki can do the exact same thing. If not better. Because Maki, once again, Maki was able to catch 15-finger Maguna off guard. 15-finger Maguna, who seems to be very akin to a Heavenly Restriction user. Like, darn near has precog. And is able to do the same thing Heavenly Restriction users are able to do, like hopping off air. Sukuna seems like that, for real. And even he was caught off guard by Maki. So, I don't really get sending Yuta other than thematically wrapping up that circle of Yuta back in Sendai saying, I'll be the one to slay Kenjaku / Suguru Geto. And also, the full wraparound of JJK 0 into this, the ultimate rematch. And I'll admit, let's say Kenny's cooked here, because let's wrap up this chapter real quick before I activate my domain expansion, endless yapping. We see, and Kenny naturally asks, was this the plan all along, Sora? And we see Takaba, or Yuta just says, hey, I'll be real with you. Takaba wouldn't take anyone's life, but I can. I wish he said that. I saw in some translations he said that, but him just saying Takaba wouldn't slay anybody, I mean, it's kind of underwhelming. But we see Kenny says, oh, I see. I hate to leave so much undone, but my will shall be carried on. So, Kenny doesn't say he's very specifically cooked here. He says it in a roundabout way, though. Him saying his will and not himself will be carried on feels like weird phrasing, I will admit. It kind of implies that he's cooked. And that's a little bit off. I'm assuming Choso. If someone's getting body jacked on a similar case to insert spoiler from Magi here based on bloodline stuff, I'm assuming Choso. But the thing is, I feel like it can't be Choso because Choso's too fodder right now. You know what I mean? I feel like, but okay, there are a couple things we gotta discuss here towards the end of this chapter. This review has been going on way longer than I expected it to. So let's see what I can do here. If I can move at the speed up for a minute. So, number 1. Going back to the discussion of weird positioning from this whole interaction. Remember how I mentioned all the way back here that Kenny was like barely a panda away from Takaba? Does it feel weird that his body's all the way over here? Like, Yuta's kind of closer to the position that Kenjaku was. And don't get me wrong, once again, Yuta could just be a speed demon who, like, kicked Kenjaku in the back, or Kenjaku could have just taken a couple paces forward after turning around, but it seems like, the decapitation doesn't even allow Yuta to take, or Kenjaku to take multiple steps. But then again, presumably, if this image is to be relied on as, like, general perspective on where everybody is, then you should be able to see Takaba here, right? You should be able to see his body, because he should be fully laid out. So, I don't know. This just feels weird on multiple different levels. Like, I don't know. Once again, the Toto / Kenjaku, such an odd duo, Copium, wants me to be like, Boogie Woogie, or Ui Ui was used here to switch places and fully catch an off-guard Kenjaku extra off-guard. But, once again, most likely just some Copium on your boy's part, so I'll just hold that as Copium. But for the Maki stuff, I will admit, I feel like Maki could have done this better and safer. We know from external materials, but then again, external materials are kind of questionable. We know from external materials that technically Kenjaku wasn't ready or willing to take Maki's body or Toji's body because they're heavily restriction users and that may interfere with his technique. So I feel like sending Maki here would have been safer. because not only can she not be sensed, not only would she be able to off guard him just like Yuta did, but also just in case Kenjaku did manage to toughen up his neck a whole bunch or like do a binding vow. Like remember, Hikari managed to save himself from a gigantic electrical explosion by activating a binding vow at the last second. Say Kenjaku is fast enough to do that, it literally wouldn't matter against Soul Split Katana. He would be decapitated regardless. But they sent the gamble and sent Yuta here. I think it's more of a narrative thing. I don't think this suddenly puts, or a like character narrative thing. I don't think this suddenly puts Yuta above Maki in speed stats, and I still think Maki stands. That's just me pushing the Maki Toji agenda. That's me. I'll make a full proper video about that. Though I think you should know the general thoughts. I think Yuta slower than 15 finger who perception blitz Ryu. I think well yeah. Long story. You know it. You know it. Once again I'll make a proper video on it soon enough. But with that being the case, the main point of interest here is who is going to inherit Takaba's, or not Takaba's will. Who's going to inherit Kenjaku's will? How will it be carried on? He could, notably, he seems like he's about to burst here, so he could just release Tengen and start the merger immediately, because it's strange that his head is talking. Number two, he could just leave. Remember, Kenjaku is not actually the person. He's the brain. And in a similar vein to all my Gojo fans out there, my fellow Gojo fans who are having copium because his brain is still intact, so hypothetically he still should be able to RCT. Like, Kenjaku is legit just the brain. He could pop that bad boy off and disappear for all we know. Who knows? Maybe that third technique was a teleportation technique of his own. And that's a thing that could still happen. So I don't think, even if Kenjaku and Geto's body is cooked, I don't think Kenjaku is cooked unless we open up next chapter with Yuta literally stomping his head out. Like, something like that has happened. Though admittedly, the will statement, that's the weird thing. That's why I wanted to wait for official translations before reviewing this chapter. The usage of the word will implies that Kenjaku himself won't be carried on, which feels weird if he was just going to hop bodies. If he's going to hop bodies, if you think Takaba actually perished this chapter because he doesn't speak after his little smile, that's a good vessel right there. You know, the comedian would immediately allow Kenjaku to start the merger. Another way for Kenjaku to start the merger, he could just use his last few seconds of life as, you know, just the head and Suguru Geto's body to just command Tengen to do it. Like, force the Culling Games to close, start the merger, bada bing, bada boom. Or you can just take Yuta's body. Once again, I mean, Yuta's right there. Unlike Maki, or basically unlike the Heavenly Restriction users, there's been no external statements about Kenjaku struggling to take their bodies. We don't know how Kenjaku's body snatching technique actually works, and wouldn't it be ironic that Yuta went for the head, appropriately, like Thor should have done, but didn't go for the right spot on the head, and ended up getting body jacked. In a similar vein to, that's another spoiler from a series, but spoilers, I'm not going to say the series name or the character, but there's a character in another series where if you take that character's life, they will leap into your body. This is a natural byproduct. And considering he's glaring specifically at Yuta here, and Yuta's the one who took his life, presumably, I wouldn't be shocked if some stitches appeared on Yuta's head. Though admittedly it does feel weird, because then why can he pop the brain out and show it? So I don't know. There's a bunch left in the air at the end of this chapter, and I like that a whole bunch. This chapter, very, very scrumdiddlyumptious when it comes to the various predicaments that our whole cast and crew is in, and overall. You can tell by my yapping, from how much fun I was having, from the analysis and breakdown. This is most certainly a W chapter. However, that's what I think. Please know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Please, let me know. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the blessed executioner in the comment section down below. I want to thank you so much for watching. Once again, please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, you happen to have a Patreon down below, where you support for as low as $1 a month. Get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction, which is about 30 minutes to this very chapter. Now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays, Red Wolf, 4765, and Greyhound. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Winter, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, and Demix LND. I'd like to give a scrumptious thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. I'd like to give another chunka-dunka thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Idem Okami. I'd like to give another thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give a hefty, thank you to our two $25 patrons, Calvin Elder and Igneel.